Welcome everybody to Townsmen VR. This is a Age of Empire style RTS type game in VR. And you might think, that's the menu, and you might think that's a bit of a weird combination, and to that I say, you are mostly correct, really. As you can see, I've played about half an hour in the tutorial just to get a little bit of a feel for it, to see what are the fun parts of this game, what are the maybe not optimal part of this game, and we'll get into that in a moment, don't you worry. But this is the first actual level of the game. So what do we do here? First and foremost, we're going to zoom in a little bit. And the thing that I am working towards right now, and for that, let's zoom out a little bit again first. You move around. Wait, you can move the clouds around. That's kind of fun. You can move around with the left or right bumper, I think is what they're called on these controllers, right? And you just kind of like drag yourself around. If you use both of them, you can zoom in and rotate. The rotating is actually like not great. And when you're not doing like any management of your island, you're probably going to want to be fairly zoomed in and not too high up, just to look around a little bit. Because if you play this like a normal RTS, and that is just like entirely zoomed out from a top-down perspective, you're going to be physically looking down a lot. And for play sessions that are longer than like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, it's going to start giving some strain on your neck. I really like playing with the clouds. Anyway, so my current objective, I think, is to repair this thing, which requires the use of some stone, some planks, and some raw wood. So how we get that is we pick up a character somewhere along here. There's some wood being produced here, I think, so that is good. We already have a little bit of stone around here, as you can see over there. That's some stone. How is our plank production? Our plank production is absolutely fantastic. So at this point, what we do is we pick up one of our characters and we just like put it onto this, and that will theory start the building project. So as you can see, he's taken up some stone to start repairing this thing. In the meantime, there's not too much else we can do other than just like hang around a little bit. It's an RTS, right? So sometimes you just gotta wait for things to happen, especially since this technically still is part of the tutorial. I think I've gone through all the major mechanics of the game, that being building buildings like this and gathering resources and stuff like that. I think once we build up this thing, we'll be out of the tutorial and into the game proper. There also is a certain amount of combat in the game, if I recall correctly, but I don't know too much about that. So if you zoom in a little more, you can actually see that this is a lot more fun to look around in, but it's fucking impossible to move around. So if you want to move around from one point to the island to the next, you're going to want to zoom out, go there, and then zoom in to see any progress. And the progress is actually going fairly well, I think, because we have 2 of the stone applied now, so there's only 1 more stone needed. I think to speed things up, but don't quote me on this, I should be able to pick you up and also put you on building duty. Now there's 2 characters trying to build this thing up. The biggest issue here is that it's pretty far away from all my resource gathering stuff, so there's a lot of walking back and forth that needs to be done. But again, if you ever played an RTS game, you are very much familiar with that concept. And now we should have all the stone required. There we go. So we need only 1 plank and 2 more wood, which this lady, gentleman, I don't know, you seem like a lady, is going to get over there and there, which is even further away than the brick. So this is going to take a while, but after that we can get into some other aspects. You can see that there's quite a lot of water stored up here in the tavern, so we probably don't need a lot of these people. So we can put a couple of these on. You seem like you are occupied with food. I don't know if this person will drown. I hope they will not. Let me pick you up out of the water, because I don't think you can swim very well. So in theory, we should have a couple of people all working on this lighthouse now, which is the #1 priority. So this seems like you are bringing up some planks, and then you seem to be going to pick up some wood for there. So that very much is a fun thing. Now, the big question is, why make this game in VR? Number 1, it's a fun, exciting relatively new technology to experiment with. So that by itself could be reason enough. I do think that in a gameplay sense, this is not a genre that really benefits a lot from VR. It's also not something that really helps you with immersion in a traditional sense, right? Also, you can pick up the birds and put them somewhere else because you're not a first person. But I think what this game gains from being in VR is that usually in an RDS, right, you are looking down roughly something like this, very much in a third person. Can we just move this cloud away, please? Very much in a third person perspective. You're looking down on things and you're like, oh, you go over there, or you go over there, or let's let clouds go away. What this game does is make that almost a second person perspective. So a first person perspective is when you are looking through the eyes of the player. The third person perspective is when you are a disembodied camera looking at your player. A second person perspective would be your player character being watched by another entity within the game. And I think RTS games generally want to invoke this feeling of you being some sort of god looking over the people that you're playing with. And while a usual RTS does thematically sometimes something with that, but generally, I'm talking here. We're saved, but I'm talking. Okay, long story short, we need to produce some planks for this fucker for us to be able to sail away from here. Anyway, second person perspective would be you being the god looking over your people in this case. You are an entity in the world looking towards the player character. Now, these little people walking around here, I don't know if you necessarily could call these people the player character. So technically, maybe second person isn't the right way to describe this. But I do think that this feeling of being a godlike entity controlling the lives of these people and helping them towards building civilization is actually strengthened by the technology of VR, where the gameplay is honestly downgraded. Playing a game like this is a lot more intuitive. It makes a lot more sense with the mouse and keyboard, where you can like click and drag, have multiple people selected at once, right-click easily to get info in your buildings, on your production, have more of a heads-up display with all your resources displayed on it, stuff like that. Certainly some things that are missing here and that you need to manually go around and like, oh, how much wooden boards do we have? We've still got 3 out of 10 in stock here, while in a more traditional RTS, that would be a lot more readily available information. So yeah, I think the gameplay gets a little bit of a hit from VR, which is something to keep in mind. I do think that the thing that VR usually does, being immersion, fits relatively well with this game. I don't think it's as much as a game like Skyrim VR, which is an example that I really like using because I really like the game, where you are an adventurer going out into the world and you really feel like it, because you're not a person actually doing the work in this. But that's kind of the point of this game. So should this have been a normal flat screen game? Maybe. But I do think that it's interesting to experiment with different genres and see what we can gain from VR development in every single genre. And while RTS might not be a genre that, by and large, we're going to want to stick with making a lot of VR games in, I think doing this, testing out the waters, there's a lot of water, is very much a good thing. And I would very much like to see creative developers put VR into genres where you don't necessarily think about them working very well, and this certainly does do that. Will I be playing this game a lot going forward in the future? Also, how much more wooden planks do we need for you? One more. You are making me some more wooden planks. I've got plenty of wood here, so you should go do your job. So that's kind of my opinion on the whole VR thing. Do you need a good reason to make a game in VR over a flat screen medium? I would argue that you would at least have to think about what VR can give you as a medium. And sometimes that ends up being not a whole lot. Immersion generally is the best thing that VR has to offer. Immersion and proper like motion controls. But motion controls really 9 times out of 10 are a means to an end for immersion. If your game doesn't benefit from a lot of immersion, maybe don't bother making it a VR game. This game, however, kind of balances that to the point where I'm like, okay, I like this, but I like this because it's one of the first times that I'm seeing an RTS game in VR. So if you give me a list of 10 of these type of games on Steam, I will probably end up burning out on it very, very quickly. Let's go to the next island. And as a result of that, the genre as a whole doesn't really do it for me in VR. I will be playing a little bit more of this game in my own time, without a doubt, but not a lot. Okay, so now that we're on a new island, I can actually show you a couple of things about how this game works. So let's turn around a little bit, let's go up a little. We don't have anything. First things first is we definitely need a little bit of wood. So let's see, this tree we can probably start doing something with. Let's put some people down on this tree as well. And then I think this might be a stone quarry somewhere around here, maybe? I definitely do see a chest. Hold on. That might be treasure. I like treasure. Oh, we can just pick them up directly. Okay, I'm sorry for bringing you over here. We can maybe... Hold on, is this a stone quarry up here? We definitely need a place to gather stone, is the thing. I'm just going to put you down there, because I found another chest. Let's go looking for these chests first, because frankly, I think that they will give me something that I need. That's the stone quarry. Hold on. Mister, you are going to be working here, because we're going to need stone sooner or later, so might as well just start mining it now. We'll start making houses and stuff like that for people to live in a moment, but treasure is much more important than any of that. Alright, we need to build a well. And the way you build things is you just pick them out and you put them into the world. In this case, in a spot of water because it's a well. But normal buildings you can just place wherever you want, really. And then somebody should automatically start working on this well, I think. Because you don't have jobs yet. I think that's how that works. Yeah, okay, good. We got a real nice bird over here, don't we? Now that we have the well, our next order is to build a woodcutter's cabin. So we can do that through going to resources here, and we can put down a woodcutter's cabin. There's a couple of trees around here, so I think this might be a good place to put that down. And this is more or less just a way for you to store the wood that you cut down, because otherwise you don't really have a way to do that. And in a similar way, I know for a fact, well, I don't know for a fact, but fairly obvious that we're going to do the stonemason next, and that one is probably going to be put down somewhere around here. Could you shut up? I'm explaining it myself. Next up, we have the woodcutter. So we can explore its information, and there we have build options, which gets you buildings that work upon the resources that this thing produces. So we get logged out of this, and that will allow us to build a wood saw, which we're going to want to be relatively close because this wood saw is going to source its wood from the woodcutter. So making this distance as small as possible is just going to save you some walking time, which isn't specific to this game because it's in VR. That's just good RTS habits. And while we're waiting for that, we might as well get on their level a little bit and just look around. The game itself is honestly not particularly pretty. It's definitely designed... You are very big. Our next order of business is apparently to build a fishing lodge, which we'll do in a moment. But you can definitely tell that the graphics in this game are designed to be looked at from this angle. But that gets me back to the point of doing that for prolonged periods of time will strain your neck muscles quite a bit. Maybe if you have a better neck than me, it won't be as big of a deal. But I find myself after about half an hour of play feeling the pull of the extra weight on my face when I'm looking down. So you might think zooming in a little bit will fix that issue, and it will, because if you're just like looking around, this is a lot more friendly for the muscles in your neck. But you can also tell that while the level of detail for the models when you zoom in goes up, still is pretty low. It's better than if you were to zoom out and then get very close to them, because at this point they are really, really low poly. I don't know if it's as blurry for you as it is for me. But zooming in doesn't really improve the visual fidelity of most models and textures all too much. So while this is a fun way to look around your island and see your people work, it's definitely clear that this is more so the way that you're intended to look at it most of the time. And I think that is not great. Anyway, resources, no, we want food and a fisher's lodge, which we can put down somewhere around here. We should put it down really close to the lake, because I imagine that the fishermen are going to be walking back and forth between those two things. I think you get the general gist of the game. It's RTS, it's a town builder, but it's in VR. And that, while that's cool, right? If you've got a VR headset, you probably will enjoy it just for the sake of it being in VR. It doesn't have much to offer besides VR as a gimmick. And that's not necessarily a horribly bad thing, because as I said, not every genre can take effect of the immersion that VR has to offer. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have any place in the VR space. But do be aware, if you want to buy this game, that if you are getting this game, that it will be maybe a little bit underwhelming in certain ways. Now, would I have any suggestions as to how to improve this RTS experience in VR? No, I literally just don't. I just think that this is a genre in general that doesn't work too well with this medium. And if you want to do something with it, this is probably some close to the best that you're gonna get. Having some more like graphical fidelity to the models when up close would probably, I'm not very close right now, having some more graphical fidelity to the models when you're up close like this would probably help things out a lot. I do get that it's stylized, but it's also like very low poly and very low resolution stylized. That might be because this is also designed to run natively on the Quest. I don't know if it is. I'm playing this from Steam. I'm playing this from my PC VR setup, in which case, like, yeah, I get stylized looks. My own game is going to be very cartoony and stylized as well. That doesn't mean things have to be low poly and low resolution. And I think for a game in which this is going to be uncomfortable for long periods of time, you're going to want to zoom in, and things need to look a little less jagged than they do, and a little less blurry. Well, they're not necessarily blurry, it's just there isn't a lot of pretty stuff to look at. And that might be because you're not intended to just stand around and look at things. But the alternative is neck pain. So this is a big issue that, again, I don't really have a solution for other than make the close-up models look better. And also give me a better way of instantly visualizing how much wood, stone, boards, and all those resources I have. I think at the moment we can like go to population. No, there is a thing that shows you that, I think, all the way over here. This works, I guess, right? This is good, but having like just a little list tracked to your left hand or something for the most valuable resources, even being able to like highlight things when I click on wood here, having it tracked to like either the back of my hand or the palm of my hand for instantly seeing, oh, this is how much of this one important resource that I have, would be an incredible upgrade to playability of this game. Same with population. I would very much like to be able to, like, anything in here, like the resources and population, I want to be able to know that information without having to go into a menu. And that is one of the big downsides to VR, is having that like HUD overlay is a lot more difficult. But it also gives me the possibility of doing exactly that, right? Having something more customizable, because you can't fit all of this information on like just tracking it to your hand. So give me the option to customize which information I want to be able to quickly access. That will probably end up making things a lot more smooth for a gameplay experience. Anyway, that's been Townsmen VR. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to go check out the game, there is a link down below in the description to the Steam page. I did get this game as a free review beta code. I don't think the game's in beta, but that's how Steam classifies it. So do be aware of that. My opinion on that, on what this game is worth, might be influenced by the fact that I didn't personally pay for it. So all that being said, This has been today's video. There will be maybe a little bit less content over the next week because I'm moving and stuff like that. I need to like get a new setup at a new place, and there will be just time lost moving. I have a lot of work to do as well, so there might be a few videos dropped over the next week or two, but I will try to keep coming at you with a lot of VR content specifically.